All right, so here is the new 1x12. All right, we're gonna start off. So this is my son's bike. We're gonna start off by removing the front cranks using a, what size is that?
T55.
A T55 Torx bit. So for these, it's gonna be kind of like with most other bolts, you're gonna do lefty-loosey, so you're gonna loosen it to the left. We kind of pre-loosened it already, that's why it kind of seems really easy. But it basically unbolts and then you just take it off. And there's the old one. Flip it around. And then right here, you'll see this is where the crank tool is gonna be to be able to pull off this ring and pull off those old chain rings.
Dude.
All right, so now that we got the cranks off, we're gonna sit there and clean them up real good with a little degreaser. That way we can put some fresh grease and this all can hopefully be running nice and smooth. All right, so next we're gonna install the front chainring onto the crank, and it has these little notches here that are supposed to line up with the top part of the crank to make sure that it sits where it's supposed to. So when it's on there, you should see it, for the most part, pretty much sit everywhere along the line. And then underneath, it should sit flat with the spacer that it has. And now we're gonna put in the locking nut. The locking nut has a torque reading on it. But first, before we put it on there, we're gonna put a little bit of some Loctite on there to keep it from pulling out. Even though theoretically it should tighten as you ride, better be safe so we don't have accidents while you're riding. Now it just screws on there and it should go on there fairly smooth. And it also has a torque reading on it, so it lets you know on this particular one it's 34 foot-pounds. So after you tighten it by hand, then we're gonna get the torque wrench and then torque it down. Now I got it on here, the tree's holding it in place, and I'm torquing it down to 47 foot-pounds. When you feel that little click in the torque wrench, that means it's done. So this thing is 47 foot-pounds. So now we got the bottom bracket greased, the crank greased, and we're gonna start reinstalling the cranks. So the cranks always install in opposite, so that right now that pedal is pointing down. So the pedal we install over here is gonna be pointing up.
That doesn't seem right.
All right, and then we'll start tightening the bolt, and then that should help pull in the crank to get it in place. So now we're gonna start tightening it up and go from there. So for this one, we're gonna do it down to 47 foot-pounds. There you go, easy enough. So now as part of the 1x conversion, we're gonna take off the front grip and we're gonna loosen up the shifter, the brakes, slide it all off so we can take off the old front derailleur. So now we're taking this off to make up for this. We're gonna move the dropper post lever off the right hand side over here. Yeah, there we go. And sometimes to make room, because it doesn't want to stretch, if you turn the handlebars in the direction of the cable, then you'll give you a little extra room to slide off the part you need. And one thing too you can do is if you mark your handlebars where your brake lever is or where your shifter is, then you can mark it with permanent marker. That way you know where to put it. And so one of the last steps, we took off and readjusted the cockpit on this side to where now it's just the brake lever and the dropper post lever. Here we're still waiting on the new GX shifter to come in, but we went ahead and cleaned everything up. We took off the other shifters, disconnected the cables. We're gonna keep the front derailleur on temporarily just to act as a chain guide for once we have it. We can kind of hopefully keep the chain from dropping if that is a problem. And in the back, we disconnected the cable, and now we're gonna detach it from the derailleur or the frame hanger. So we like using these little Allen wrench multi-tools because it has kind of every size you need in one little triangle. So it's a kind of handy little tool. And there we go. The old derailleur's gone, and now we just have to wait for FedEx to show up with the new one. All right, so here is the new 1x12. So we got a SRAM XD or GX derailleur. Thing just looks pretty. And then we got so all the parts are here. We got the NX cassette, we got the GX shifter, and we got the GX chain and the GX derailleur. And now we're gonna pull off the old cassette and install the NX cassette. So we're gonna use this chain tool, which is gonna grab onto the chain, and then the cassette tool to remove the lock ring.
I can't do it.
You should see where the point with not good leverage. All right, so now we're gonna take off the lock ring and then just slide the cassette out, and it should slide out all in one piece. There we go. So there's the cassette on. In here it has small little notches that are supposed to line up. So you kind of can't mess this up. It kind of just, everything lines in. If it's not in the right place, it basically won't slide on. It should slide on nice and smooth. If you're having to force it, then there's something wrong. And then now we're gonna put on the lock ring, which is gonna hold the cassette in place. And on the lock ring itself, it has a torque spec that we're gonna get the tool, and this one's the GX derailleur is gonna bolt straight to the old hanger. And it looks like if essentially you keep your old hanger, oh yeah, that looks like that's actually perfect. And it's gonna clip right to here. Let's see if it works. Yep, and there it goes. That's pretty cool.